Hello. So, here's the situation. Last night I was very, very tired. I vacuumed the whole living room, and then after that, my dog's gonna drink water. After that, I decided to pull every single classic I own from the shelves of books across the room that I have not read yet. And then I have these shelves here, which I have read these books. And I decided that today I would film a video where I talk about all of the classics that I own. And I'm going to go through all of the ones that I've read first. Oh, and then introductions. Hello, I'm Jennifer and welcome to my library. I am a chaotic neutral mechanical engineer who's really into permaculture and wants to talk about books. So let's talk about books. This whole shelf, like I mentioned, is my classics shelf. Below it I have children's, also organized by date. Also, I didn't pull any of the Nancy Drews as classics, but I don't know if that was a mistake. I have like 5 unread Nancy Drews and 6 read Nancy Drews. Reverse chronological order for the ones that I read? Why not? So the first one here is Strength to Love by Martin Luther King Jr. I don't know if it's actually considered a classic, but it's kind of older work and it's written by Martin Luther King. This was 1963. It is a collection of sermons, and some of them I really, really enjoyed, and then some of them I didn't connect with as much. When I first started this, I thought this was going to be like a new absolute favorite, but then there's just some things that I didn't connect with, and it ended up not being that way. Also, did you see my avocado tree? I'm so proud of it. A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. I associate this with my one and only trip to Cabo San Lucas, but I'm pretty sure it was my husband who was reading it at that time. I have, I guess, really mixed feelings about it. The last chapter is very, very important, and I'm pretty sure the last chapter was left off in a lot of US editions, especially early on. Obviously it's super influential and super iconic, so I would recommend reading it, but very, very violent and like sickening. And also the language is a bit difficult. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey. I read this in high school and I have not reread it since, but it does have my high school annotations. So that'll be fun when I go to reread it. I enjoyed this quite a lot for like required reading in my high school years. Catch-22. This, I don't remember this being such a long book, but I did enjoy this. I can't remember if this was required reading or if I just read it while I was in high school. I don't really know how to explain this book either. It's, in my mind, it's so associated with Slaughterhouse-Five, and I don't know if that's valid or not. I feel like it's also got similar, like, weird time disconnects and stuff like that. Has to do with war. A Raisin in the Sun by Lorraine Hansberry. I really, really enjoyed this. This is a play. So I read this after I graduated high school. Yeah, it was just really good. This book here was one of my absolute favorites when I first read it. I first read it, excuse me, I first read it after I graduated high school. That's The Man in the Gray Flannel Suit by Sloane Wilson. I loved this. I connected so much with it, and I cannot remember it at all. And I don't know if it's any good anymore. I have not reread it ever. And I really am afraid to reread it in case I don't think it's good anymore. So let me know if you've read this and if it holds up. I read this one recently. That's The Crucible by Arthur Miller. This is a play set in Puritan times based on real life of witch trials. This play was super conflicting for me because I was so engaged with it, so interested in what was going to happen next. Really really caught by the ambiance, by the stakes, but then I read a little bit more about like the real stuff going on, and I feel like this has an incredibly strange interpretation with a lot of biases. So, weird one, but definitely recommend this. It was also still very good. The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. This was one of my favorite books that I was required to read in high school, and I've reread it maybe twice. I reread it. I really love this book. I know it's very polarizing to people, but I just loved it so much. It also has my high school annotations. Cheaper by the dozen. This is such a silly, silly dumb book, honestly. I don't hold this in any special place in my heart. This is by Frank B. Gilbreth Jr. and Ernestine Gilbreth KC. These are kind of like memoirs. They're based on real life and just this family with a lot of kids. 1984 by George Orwell. This is also the copy that I was required to read in high school, and I loved this. I remember just plowing through this in the course of just a couple nights. I like really binge read this, which was so unusual for required reading. Loved it. Still love it. I think it's not only is it like an important story with like whole message and everything, but it's also just like a page turning, like you're invested, and it's like almost pulpy book. Another that I read in high school, that is Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller. I don't remember a ton about this. I did like it, and I haven't reread it since, so anyway, another Arthur Miller play. This book, I highly, highly recommend, and I don't think it's talked about enough. That's The Living is Easy by Dorothy West. This came out, gosh, I think 1947? 1948. So 1948, this was written by a black woman in America. And it talks a lot about colorism and the like north-south stuff. It's set in Chicago. Super interesting perspective that isn't really in a lot of literature just because of access to being published at that time. So, highly recommend this. The main character kind of sucks, so just be warned. Then one of my absolute favorite reads of this year, I read this at the beginning of this year, Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. I loved this book so much. It is just a bit of a fever dream. The writing is so frenetic. The energy in this book, the things that happen in this book are so good for my brain. This also explores like race, being a black man, and just having such limited options due to perceptions, and just so good. The Stranger by Albert Camus. Don't remember this at all. Really. I mean, I remember a bit of it. I remember that I enjoyed it. I read this for high school as well. I just need to reread it, frankly, because I remember so little. Oh, The Good Earth by Pearl S. Buck. This is such a weird book. Compulsively readable, and yet, like, disturbing. We follow this man's life. He's a Chinese farmer, and we track him through his life. I do recommend it, but strange. I wish I didn't have this sticker on here, but A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. This is still the only Virginia Woolf I've read, and it's basically like an essay. It's a long and like slightly fictionalized essay about writing, women's ability, women's access to writing and publishing novels. I really, really enjoyed it. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This is such an iconic book. I also read this for high school. I have reread it. I really like this. I really like this book. It's so simple. It's such a simple story, and I think that's part of the reason why I like it so much. Oh my god. Billy Budd by Herman Melville. This is such a such a tragic fucking story. I don't know why we had to read this in high school. I read this in 2009. I don't know what to say. I think about Billy Budd sometimes. This Side of Paradise by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I don't remember this book super well. I think it was a little bit boring. Yeah, more like insufferable. Oh, Jesus Christ, buddy. Oh my god. Why'd you do that? Now I gotta put them in order again. Sorry, yelling at my cat. The Lost World by Arthur Conan Doyle. Just, I guess a heads up, a lot of these I read as books that were accessible through the public domain when I was in college. When I was in college, I didn't have like all of my books with me, and I didn't even have a library like card at that time. I didn't realize that that was something that I could do. So I ended up reading a lot of public domain books on my phone through Google Books. And one of those was This Side of Paradise, I'm pretty sure. And one of those was The Lost World by Arthur Conan Doyle. I have also read one of the Sherlock Holmes books, but I can't for the life of me remember which one it is. This is a silly little adventure story. They end up going to this like weird plateau, this mysterious plateau where dinosaurs still exist. And it's told very seriously and like it's real research. The Man Who Is Thursday by G.K. Chesterton. This is another one of those books that I absolutely adored when I first read it, but I don't really remember it very well. Like, I don't know why that happens with me sometimes. There will be a book where I just enjoyed the reading experience so deeply, and then none of it has gone into the brain. That's this one. I don't know if it holds up. Heart of Darkness and The Secret Chair by Joseph Conrad. Now, when I was in high school, I really, really loved reading The Heart of Darkness. I connected with the writing like quite a lot. Like, you can kind of tell with my annotations. I'm like engaged. I'm engaged with this book. I feel kind of weird about that now, just because of like racist stuff going on. But that's the truth. I did enjoy it. I reread it in 2020. That was a mistake. I couldn't focus for the life of me. Early pandemic. Had such a bad time reading. My brain was so overwhelmed with like what was going on in the world that I had a hard time reading this. But I also read The Secret Chair at that time, and similarly, I don't know what was going on. The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. The Yellow Wallpaper is something I read last year, I think, and really, really enjoyed it. It stuck with me quite a lot. It is early feminist horror, kind of, so it definitely has gotten a lot of acclaim recently. And then this is a book that I absolutely despised when I had to read this in high school. I've wanted to either chuck this book forever, just get rid of it, because I hated it so much, or reread it and see how much I've changed. So yeah, I read this in 2010. It's a Civil War. It's a very realistic Civil War account. It is fictional. I just hated it. I don't know. I really do get the sense that if I reread it, I would interpret it in such a different way, and that I would have so much more empathy for this kid. Now, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. I'm disappointed that in society these days we know how this book ends. That we know the twist. If this had its twist unspoiled for everybody, this would be such an experience. But because everybody knows how it ends, or what the twist is, it's much, much harder to have, like, than the sensation of like reading it for the first time. It fell a little flat, but not because it lacks its own merits, but just because we have collectively spoiled this for ourselves as a society. Kidnapped by same guy. So this is a different version than the one that I read. I think this is abridged. I read a version that wasn't abridged through LibriVox, and it really is just, it really reminded me of DuckTales, and it really reminded me of just a basic YA story. Treasure Island. Muppet Treasure Island was one of my favorite movies as a kid, and so when I was quite young, I wanted to read Treasure Island, and I tried to. And then I finally did, and I just don't really remember it very much compared to Muppet Treasure Island, so that's my experience. But I love this copy that I had when I was a kid. I think it's a pretty cool... It's pretty cool. Like, it's got a lot of illustrations and stuff. Crime and Punishment. I read this last year. It makes me feel better holding it because it is thick, and I had a bit of a hard time with this one. I would really recommend looking up how Russian names work before reading any Russian literature, because I didn't know how that worked until after I read this book. I would also recommend just taking what you can get and maybe rereading it later, because that's how I went. I loved our main plotline. Everything else I didn't follow. But our main plotline of our main guy killing people, feeling ways, super enjoyed that. The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. I also read this when I was in high school. This one was pretty good. Definitely captured like a lot of really strong visuals. This one's a good one. I'll say it. This one's a good one. And I just don't know if I'll ever reread it because it's obviously old and the writing I do recall being a bit challenging. Jane Eyre. I have two different copies. I don't know why. Oh, okay. So this one's the one that I annotated, but I prefer this version because it's smaller and cuter. So Jane Eyre. I love Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre was such a phenomenon when we read it in high school because people were literally texting each other about, oh my god, did you read the next chapter of Jane Eyre yet? Like, can you believe this? So this was like gossip worthy work. Very just wild. It's such a soap opera-y book. I don't know how else to describe it. Also, oh my god, the punctuation. I love. Oh, I wrote like this for a while with all of these fucking semicolons and like M dashes and oh my god. Love it. Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass. Gotta be real. This was so short that I really don't remember it very well. Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This was required reading in high school, and I liked it at that time. I did. And there were a few things that I took from it more than other things. And when I reread it, those things that I remembered about it being good were still good. But there was so much more of it that I didn't remember that I didn't enjoy. So when I reread this, it was not a great experience. And I really do think I would need to reread it again now that I have tempered my expectations. Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. The copy that I have is beautiful. Like, this is a beautiful book. But I don't care about Jane Austen at all. Is that crazy? I feel like I'm not a real woman because I don't like Jane Austen, but I just... Regency bores the ever-loving shit out of me. I really think I prefer, like, 1930s to 1950s. And, God, I don't know, man. I would be so, if I had to live in this world, I would be so bored out of my mind. That's how I feel. Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe. I had to read this in college. It's definitely like an important historical work for literature. It's like what, the earliest novel written in English, I think. I do enjoy parts of it, and I enjoy when it's referenced, this story is referenced in other works, but obviously this also has like racist stuff going on, so it's a little bit of a weird one. But it's kind of fun. I don't know. Read it at least once. Oh, and now we get into Shakespeare. I don't remember anything about Shakespeare stuff that I've read, except for Romeo and Juliet. I don't even have a copy of that. I do like Romeo and Juliet. But anyway, The Tempest, it was cool. I just don't remember it very well. Macbeth, I don't really remember very well at all. I don't know, I'm not a big Shakespeare person. We have a banger. We have a banger. Pearl and Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. This copy is in Middle English, I think. So I can't read this. I can't read this book. This is not in English that is able to be read by me. But I did read a translated copy. Anyway, Pearl and Sir Gawain and the Green Knight are poems written by somebody. They think it's the same person, referred to as the Gawain poet. Pearl hit me so fucking hard. I love Pearl so much. It's a man consoling himself about the death of his, like, baby daughter. Beautiful imagery. Beautiful. Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, goofy. Goofy, riding around on a horse with a sword. Goofy story. I enjoyed both of them. I don't remember this at all. I'm so sorry, guys. I don't even know which one I read. I think it's Oedipus the King? These are the 3 Theban plays by Sophocles. I read this in high school. I read at least one of these in high school. I don't remember this. I'm so sorry. Another beautiful, beautiful book, even though it does have like some pen marks and stuff on it. But this is my copy of The Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. I had a really fun time reading this year. It's a little weird. It's very old writing. And this book is like a lot of different translations of the same work. So I recommend that people read this. I have an Iranian coworker, and I mentioned to him that I had read The Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. And of course he was able to pronounce all of that properly, unlike me. And he was just so excited that somebody had read from his culture. And he was telling me that they were required to read that stuff in school. And then told me more about like Persian culture like later. So I'm really happy that I was able to connect in that way through an old work. Let me go get those stuff from my bedroom, because those should be on this shelf, but they're not, because I hold them with a certain importance over there. So let me come back. And then I'm gonna call it quits, because I have definitely no ability to go through all of the stuff from the books that I have not read yet. I just pulled these books from in there. Oh my god. It's like, I think it's double the amount we just went through, so I'm gonna try to go much quicker. H.G. Wells, The Invisible Man. I tried to read this when I was like a kid, because doesn't this look like a kid book? I don't know. I hated it when I was a child. Reread it as an adult somewhat recently, and I thought it was interesting. The character is unlikable. The Time Machine, one of my favorite books. I love The Time Machine. I've read it a few times. Just absolutely love The Time Machine. Island of Dr. Moreau. I read this recently, a couple years ago. Love The Island of Dr. Moreau. So, a bit hit and miss, but couple more hits than misses, I suppose. H.G. Wells. I've not yet read War of the Worlds, and I don't own it. Philip K. Dick. When are these from? 68. And I just feel like they are so influential that I kind of want to talk about them. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? This is what Blade Runner is based off. Ubik. I think about this book all the time. 1969. So, anyway. Honorable mentions, I suppose. Now we have my Stanislaw Lem collection. Solaris. The Futurological Congress. This was the first Stanislaw Lem I ever read. I don't know why I picked it up. I didn't know anything about it. And Memoirs Found in a Bathtub, which I think is iconic. All of these are iconic. Stanislaw Lem. Read him. Hemingway. Green Hills of Africa is a memoir of his time going big game hunting in Africa with friends and his wife. I loved this. I loved this very, very dearly when I was a younger person. When I was in high school, I read this for fun, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I have not reread it. I don't know if I would love it today. Across the River and Into the Trees, I read this last year. Mixed feelings. Mixed feelings. Not my favorite Hemingway. The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway. Also not my favorite Hemingway. I thought this one was kind of boring, kind of aimless, which maybe is part of it. The Old Man and the Sea, absolute banger. Highly recommend, and it's very short. Here's my Steinbecks. Love Steinbeck. The Pearl, I had to read this in middle school, reread it recently. It's good. The Grapes of Wrath, I had to read this in high school. It was an epic, I suppose. And I did enjoy it. I just love his writing, so regardless of what it's about, I tend to enjoy it. Of Mice and Men. Reread this year. Still liked it. This was also required reading for me in high school. Cannery Row. I love Cannery Row. I read Cannery Row for fun before I read it as required reading for high school, and then I've read it again since then. I really enjoy Cannery Row. Just recently I finished reading Travels with Charlie. This is a memoir where he travels the United States with his dog, and I just loved it. I loved it so much. Sinclair Lewis. Babbitt. Really enjoyed Babbitt. This is one of those books that went in my brain. I had a great time, loved reading it, went straight back out the brain, don't remember anything. And It Can't Happen Here, also by Sinclair Lewis. I think this cover is just atrocious, but the subject matter within is very pertinent to today. The Sea Wolf by Jack London. Crazy plot, but loved the conversations about like good and evil. John Barleycorn by Jack London. This is his memoirs centered around alcoholism and in support of the temperance movement. This is where I actually became way more interested in Jack London and really him as a person. I found I loved this. It was so humanizing, and I don't actually love his fiction that much. So White Fang, it's well written, but it doesn't give me like a good feeling. And The Call of the Wild, I didn't really like. I did read this before I read John Barleycorn, and then after reading John Barleycorn I was a lot more interested in him. So maybe I would have a different opinion. This is like a super random stack. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry wrote The Little Prince. The Little Prince is one of my favorite books of all time. I love this book so much, and I know it could go in the children's section. I don't care. I'm putting it in this section. It's amazing. I think it should be read by all. Wind, Sand, and Stars are nonfiction memoirs, basically. Memoirs and stories by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. There is the non-fictional stuff that inspires this book in this. Highly recommend this. This was one of my favorite books that I read in recent years. Dark Princess by W.E.B. Du Bois. The only Du Bois that I've read, and I had such a great time with this book. I loved this book. It's not going to be loved by all, but it has some of the things in a book that I really enjoy, like secret society kind of stuff. Had a great time with this. The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. I own, I think, 3 copies of The Metamorphosis. This is the one that I read. I read this in high school, but I loved it. I really, really love The Metamorphosis. I have reread it. Gregor, I feel for you. Flatland by Edwin A. Abbott. This is like a geometric, imagined world. Love how creative it is. Love how mathematical it is. It has some really weird stuff about women, which I don't like. And I have 2 inspired pieces based off of this book, Sphereland, and I also have Flatterland. I have not read Flatterland yet, but I have read Sphereland, and they try to correct some of the weird stuff that he had to say about women. And then, I don't know if this counts as a classic, but I'm going to talk about it. That's Walls and Bars by Eugene V. Debs. Eugene V. Debs was a socialist presidential candidate in the 1920s, and he went to jail. He went to jail and then he died. He wrote this book while he was in prison. I really like this book. Almost all of the books that I'm talking about that are from this room have a weight of importance for me. The Sea Around Us by Rachel Carson. This is nonfiction about the oceans by Rachel Carson, who is known for being one of like the first like environmentalists. She wrote Silent Spring, which I have not read, but I did read The Sea Around Us. Got really into the oceans. This is outdated scientific information, but I love the snapshot it gives of the thoughts around what was going on in the oceans. The Gift of the Deer by Helen Hoover. I also don't know if this counts as a classic, but I'm going to talk about it. Lovely, lovely nonfiction about some deer in the northeastern United States. All of my Vonnegut's. So the 2 that I think are really considered classics are Cat's Cradle and Slaughterhouse-Five. Absolutely adore Cat's Cradle. Slaughterhouse-Five is a classic, obviously. I adore Kurt Vonnegut's writing. And then I've also read Player Piano, Galapagos, and The Sirens of Titan. Ray Bradbury. Fahrenheit 451 I had to read when I was in school. It's such a good book. I think about this book a lot as well, with just some of the technology and some of the things, the way that we experience the world. I think about that a lot, like the speed at which we drive on the freeway, being plugged in to my earbuds all the time, which I do that. I don't care if I'm being judged by Ray Bradbury in the past. The Illustrated Man is a collection of short stories. The Halloween Tree, iconic, this is also children's work, but iconic Halloween work. The Martian Chronicles, also iconic. I also really, really love Ray Bradbury's writing. I didn't bring out all of the stuff that I have from Ursula K. Guin, but I brought out some of it that I thought was more like influential and classics. So I have Planet of Exile here. The Dispossessed. I think that's a classic. And the word for world is forest. Super influential. So, like, there's a lot of hubbub about this when Avatar came out. Jules Verne. Journey to the Center of the Earth. Goofy. This is what I was thinking of when I talked about The Lost World. Very similar vibes. From the Earth to the Moon. One of my favorite books. I love this book so much. They go to the moon. And Around the World in 80 Days, which is just an absolute goofball of a book. I read 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, but I kind of hated it, so I don't have a copy of that. The Man Who Made Wine, I just recently finished reading this. I don't know if this is considered a classic either, but it is older. It's by J.M. Scott, and I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed this story so much. The play, Strange Interlude by Eugene O'Neill. Love this. Love this play. It's an extremely long play, and it's about this woman. Read it. Tolstoy, Happy Ever After, also called Family Happiness, and The Death of Ivan Ilyich are the two that I've read from this collection. I've not read the Cossacks yet, so this doesn't belong up here, it belongs over there, but I read those two. And love them. Absolutely love Happy Ever After. I've now read it twice, and The Death of Ivan Ilyich was also brilliant. Super up my alley. I've also read The Birds by Aristophanes this year, and this is an ancient Greek play. It was weird. I didn't really enjoy my time. I've read some Asimov. I've also read more than this, but what I have is the Galactic Empire series, so The Stars Like Dust, The Currents of Space, and Pebble in the Sky. I have these. But obviously Asimov is known for much more influential works, like the I, Robot and all the robot books, and then also Foundation, which I did read the first book of Foundation as well. J.R.R. Tolkien, totally forgot about this whole aspect because it was in my very small fantasy section over here. I've read The Hobbit, The Fellowship of the Ring. Love The Fellowship of the Ring. Very good. The Two Towers, and I've not finished Return of the King. I don't have it in me yet, so those are the trailing books that I totally forgot about. Now I have to take a picture over here. These are the books all laid out that I talked about today, besides the ones that I just talked about, so I gotta find a spot for all of these to go. So let's do that, I guess. Does that work? Seems like it works. That's it, dude. I think that's it. I have to stop because it's gonna get so unruly and long to edit. But just know there will be more classics videos coming out in the recent weeks, I suppose. And if you're interested in that, stick around and we will explore all of those together. Now I have to take a photo of myself on the ground with a bunch of books around me because I want people to click on this. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please consider sharing it with a friend who you think would also enjoy it. Let me know, of these, what are your favorites? What are your least favorites? What are your thoughts on the books that I covered today? Are there any that you don't think are classics? I will be back again soon.